different drawing that I've got, and it is a file that is a survey file, and you can see that it has a bunch of information. It's actually a site map of a project that has all the lots, it has roadways in it, but over here you can see all of the different layers that we have to manage by. So if I look at all of these, then basically down here it says I have 504 layers, okay? Something goes on each one of those layers. It's maybe, like I said, this is a civil drawing, so I've got asphalt layers, an aerial layer, we've got borders, we've got boundaries, labels, text, utilities. Now when you see the letter C before any type of layer, this is actually set up for architectural and civil. That means it is a construction layer. So when you're using different programs such as Civil 3D or mechanical MEP drawings, they'll actually have a template that already has all these layers set up. You don't have to set them up. Like we created our class template and we put in visible, hidden, because those are layers we're going to be using in the class. So when we create a template, we don't want to have to, or a drawing, we don't want to have to rewrite all of these layers. We don't want to have to develop 500 layers. So imagine if you're doing an architectural drawing. All the architectural drawings usually start with A something, like A-wall, A-window, A-whatever. So that organizes how and what we're putting on these layers. So I'm not going to put sewer on a water layer. That just doesn't make any sense, because that would confuse somebody when they go to start to build it, to be on the wrong layer, the wrong line type, all of that. So layer management is huge, but not only do we manage our layers, we always draw in what we call model space. So all this stuff is drawn to scale in model space. Now, when we go and we want to print something to make it look nice, then we're going to draw something, we're going to create a viewport and put it into paper space. Now it goes back to our layer management. I'm going to hit this little plus button. And I am going to create, you can't see it, but I went ahead and created a layout 3. Now this is paper. Watch what happens when I highlight that yellow box. That yellow box is my viewport. All of the stuff that you see here, let me switch back, is in model space and is drawn 1-to-1 scale, right? Now when I go to one of these layout tabs, this is called paper space, okay? This paper is like a window. If I select that window and delete it, you can't see anything anymore. It's just a sheet of paper and it's blank. We will, in this class, we will create a title block that basically gives us a, you know, you've seen the headers of it's an architectural firm and this is our addresses and this is what the project name is, all of that. So an example of one of those is for a company might be, this is for a survey. So here's all the survey information, who the developer is, what the project name is. So they've already got a title block set up. Now the command to create that window, is called InView. So if I type in InView and hit enter, it's going to ask me, specify a viewport. Now there's other ways to do it. You could already have some type of a block. Typically when you type in InView and you just automatically start to draw, it's going to draw you a rectangle like this. So I pick a point, and I draw a block. Okay? You can't really see anything in it, but over here is a pull down. So right now I'm in paper space. As soon as I double click, and I'm going to change that layer. Hold on. That's on the wrong layer. It should be on, there should be a layer called viewport. Now, here's the thing. See this black line? That's my viewport layer, and it'll tell me it's on the viewport layer, and it is a viewport. Now, if I double click on the inside of that, see how it goes bold? That means the viewport is active, and I can zoom in on this, and I'm going to reach in, and I can zoom in until I see what I want to see. Now here's the thing with scale. When we plot this, this is a 24 by 36 sheet of paper. This is thousands of acres. Is it going to fit on one sheet of paper? No. And it's not going to fit one to one, right? So down here, there is a little icon or a little scale bar. If I pull this down, engineers' scales go 1 inch equals 10 feet, 1 inch equals 20 feet, 1 inch equals, 100 feet, whatever. So I'm going to pick 1 to 100. All right? So I'm going to zoom in on this little tract of land. Now, I can come out here, and when I zoom in and out, it's paper again. But if I double click in here and I zoom in and out, I've just screwed my scale up. You know what happens when you screw your scale up and you give it to a contractor? Everything measures wrong, and then you're sued because you've just shown them the wrong design. So, and that's not a joke. The company that I had worked for before, they had a drafter zoom in and forgot to lock. You can actually lock this, and I'll show you how. So the scale wasn't 100 to 1 inch equals 100. It was 1 inch equals 105. So they didn't cost estimate properly. So it came back as not a lawsuit, but it came back as who's going to pay for this problem. Come to find out, it was a wash, and it was like, it is what it is. We wrote the numbers, because written information is in a hierarchy of what's on the drawing. Written information overrules scaled information. So we said 105 feet of such and such pipe. When they scaled it, they only got 90 feet. Then it was not our fault. We still told them, yes, our scale was wrong. But that led to a whole discussion on what we need to do. So when you set scales, when you double click on the outside, you're now active in paper space. Highlight the viewport, and down here there's a little lock button. It looks like a lock. You're going to click on it, and it locks the view. Now when I activate the viewport, I can still work on the inside of it, for example, but when I zoom in, it doesn't change my scale. It's going to stay at 100, okay? But I can still touch everything, and I can move everything. I can work inside of it, okay? So the reason I'm showing you this as part of the layer management is because, all right, so this line is on a layer called SD lot, right? So if I type in LA for layer management, you could also touch the home. If you go to the home tab, you can click on layer properties. It'll bring up this box. But the important part is it gives you a lot more information. Now, before I only had this much when I go to my model space. If I go to model space, look what it changes. If I go to model space, look what it changes. These are all your layer options in model space. When you work in paper space through a viewport, so I'm going to go back to my layout 3. Actually, I'm going to go here. So when I double click through the viewport, this is now what the layer manager looks like. The reason is let's say we said, and I'm going to find, here's another thing, just FYI. Up here, when you have 500 layers and you don't feel like scrolling, you can actually start typing SD. That's what it was. We said it was SD lot. Notice that there's a wild card, that little asterisk. That's called a wild card. And it allows you to filter. So I'm going to go to SD lot right here. I highlighted it. Now look at this information over here. If you take a look at the viewport, that's what the VP stands for. VP has all this additional information. I can change its line style, its line weight, its color. I can turn it on or off. I can freeze it. Okay? So I'm going to escape out of that, and let's go to model for a second. In model, I wish I could show you both screens. In model, I'm going to zoom in tight. We said SD lot, right? And in that, I can also pull these over. We have little light bulb. The little light bulb turns things on and off, like a light bulb. Right next to it is what we call the freeze. Okay? Right next to it is a lock, and then the color. Now, the light bulb turns things on and off. So when I look at, notice that now I don't have any lines in here. I can turn it back on. I can freeze it, it turns it off. So the light bulb and the freeze button work the same in model space. Okay? You can also use the command, and you'll hear me in videos or whatever, say lay freeze, L-A-F-R-Z. It's because I don't typically use this as much to turn things on and off. I type the command in. There's also the buttons up here. It's a snowflake. The snowflake you can use as lay freeze. Okay? And you can use the little on and off button and turn things off. Okay? And you can also unfreeze them. All right? Now, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to show you the difference. This is working in model space. I'm going to pause here and I'm going to show you it through paper space and the abilities of what you can do with layer management there.